Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, we're looking at another mini episode of Games My Mom Found, a spooky mini. But it's not Halloween, Mike. Well, it's coming right after, so you get one last spooky before things return to normal. And I am Mike Albertin, and, remember the hell I was saying? And who's with me in existential dread?
Hello. I am Richard. Hey, let me tell you how much I've come to hate two-gun jokes since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for two-gun jokes at this micro-instant. Hate, Sampson. And
that was a lot. I give you props.
And you probably know me from my YouTube channel, Rich Kale, where I play through various games, and this was one of the games I played through on the channel. And now I gotta let my voice recover.
And who else is with us?
I am a virtual little voice, a sound streaming into your ears by a being known as Ma. He has gathered here to talk for your pleasure and his own about trivial pleasures. Where once sat a human, now rests a drone, a physical form meant to entertain for who knows how long. At least the rest of you are listening. Ma will be the happier for that. Ma has won, his virtual reach expanding beyond the podcast services, and soon you will join us. I am the Let's Play Princess Phoebe Stanton, and I must record this podcast.
And who is our new guest to join us?
Hello, I'm Rohn Huntone. Don't really have anything to mention or any fancy sayings. Just a normal guy.
Well, and you're welcome to join us. And we are here to talk. And I'm pretty sure it's a game about all the openings. Who knows? But we are here to talk about I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, a PC game that came out, developed by Cyber Dreams and the Dreamers Guild, and came out in 1995 originally.
Yes.
And this is actually supposed to be on the show the very first Halloween Spooktober that we did. One of the guys had wanted this to be his pick, but then he quit the show, unfortunately, before we got there. So then I just took it off because none of us wanted to do it at the time.
And I kept pushing him.
Yeah, and this was only because I was worried I wouldn't have enough Spooktober content for Spooktober. And then it turned out that I did, but I was like, since I already started doing this, and I couldn't believe the amount of people that wanted to do this. Besides just me and Richard, or besides just Richard, I shouldn't even put me in this. And so here we are. You get to hear a review about this game.
Well, to just get into the developer a little bit, should probably be mentioned they developed a different series of point-and-click adventure games before I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream called Darkseed.
Oh, they were behind Darkseed as well.
Yeah, you can kind of see the influence of that in Benny's section.
Yeah.
So I should say this before we get too far. I don't play point-and-click adventures. I don't like point-and-click adventures, and I didn't play early PC games very much.
I'm with you on the first 2 points, Mike.
I grew up with Myst, but that's about it.
Yeah, instead of it, well, the great thing about most of the early point-and-click adventure games, you can get basically the same experience by just finding a long play online, and then you can just watch that. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Yes. But there's also the experience that comes with it, and when I was actually in college when this came out, and I remember first seeing the box of this in various stores, including a Tower Records down near Willow, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, near King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. We would go down there from time to time. I went over to because record stores and music stores and CD stores, you could find anything in those places. CD, hey, VCR, hey, VCR tapes, CDs, CD-ROMs, hey, we can put that here. And I saw this box, and I'm like, okay, that's a little bit freaky. And, of course, as I got older and all that, and, you learn about how much of an influence Harlan Ellison had on the world of science fiction and part of the start of the new wave of science fiction, I started to get a little bit more into this. And even when I actually played this when I was going through some of my darker days after my wife passed away. So I got into it about that time, and I'm actually glad I played it at that time, because nothing makes you feel better than, well, you're going through one of your worst times, and you can actually play as other people going through their worst times.
I mean, to be fair, sometimes games just hit at the right spot in life. I mean, that, especially when it just happens out of nowhere sometimes, and sometimes that's just, what you have to do when life throws you shit.
Yeah. Indeed.
Well, and this game in particular, I mean, tackles a lot of stuff that games wouldn't touch even today.
This is true.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to get into it just yet or not.
We can, sure.
But I mean, the one character Nimdak, his entire section in the game is actually really is something you would never see like almost anything tackle. He's literally a World War II Jewish doctor who has to come to grips with the fact that he tortured and executed his own people.
Yeah.
And the game doesn't even like shy away from it or anything.
Nope, it's fucking dark.
It's just right there in your face, and it's not even quite the darkest one, depending on which one you're looking at.
Oh, wow.
Each one is a bit dark.
Okay.
And well, I mean, you saw it. Well,
before we go too far,
Yeah.
I do want to ask Phoebe, what is your history with this game?
None, really.
Okay.
I watched two best friends play it, but that's about it.
And
I
then
know
you got
Short
the
Story,
chance
and
to
I've
play it
seen
yourself.
His other work.
Oh yes, Harlan Ellison is very, very prolific and has a great influence, especially on science fiction. In fact, one of his most standout works, which even he admits it was edited a bit to his chagrin, but it is a very landmark episode of the original Star Trek. I'm sure you've heard of The City on the Edge of Forever.
Good episode, though.
Yes.
I was gonna say, and I've seen A Boy and His Dog, so
Yeah, I have not seen that myself. I know of it, and I've read about it.
it's rough.
Yeah. See, he was on the edge of science fiction that was becoming more gritty. Didn't just look at the future as with everything working and with robots and all that. No, he was looking at the psychological aspects. I mean, I'm going to ask this now. How much of this did you really go into? Did you dive into the short story? Did you even listen to the short story?
No.
I've read the short story a couple of times. I listened to part of Harlan's reading of it. However, after listening to that, especially the hate speech in it, which Richard was so kind to grace us with, I like his voice work in this game much more than his audio reading.
Yeah.
He seems to understand that he's supposed to kind of be hamming it up a bit, which works great. I'm somewhat familiar with Harlan Ellison's work and a lot of TV stuff, Star Trek, Babylon 5, and also his general just being a world famous curmudgeon.
He's one of the kinder curmudgeons, if you get along with him.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about him. I was going to read the story for this episode, but then time got away from me, and then I realized I had too much shit going on.
Well, actually, I think the story is probably a good starting point to get into the game, since obviously the game is an adaptation. The story itself it's actually very short.
It is
in an hour or two, if that, and it's a lot more vague than the game. The only character who is really even fleshed out is the character of Ted, and that's because he's the narrator. Yeah,
and even as you read it, you also realize he is what they call an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, and Benny as a core character is probably the one that's the most different between the book and the game. This actually ties in the development of the game. One thing that the developers didn't want to touch, and it's crazy considering what I mentioned with Nimdak, was they didn't want to touch having a gay character in the game at the time.
Makes sense considering this is what, 1995?
Yeah,
1995.
Yeah, no, that unfortunately makes perfect sense for the 90s.
Yeah, and because the thing is, in the short story, all Benny is it's just like, because Benny is still this like hideous ape thing, and there's also specific mention of his member being of unusual size, and And it's basically, it just says that like he was a very handsome gay scientist. And part of how Am is torturing him is actually a thing with him and Ellen, which is kind of gross, but you can kind of figure out what I'm talking about just from the implication there.
Yeah.
And so that's probably the most different in the game, because in the game Benny has this whole story where he was a soldier.
Yeah.
And it was in Korea, right?
He was somewhere. I don't remember if it's actually ever fully implicated. I don't remember that.
It's been so long since I've read the short story, but in the game it's implied to be Viet Cong. Because he actually references Hamburger Hill.
Didn't he reference tunnels too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would definitely be Vietnam then.
And he also uses the slur for them as well.
Yeah.
95.
It fits in with.
Yeah.
Oh no, it does. It didn't bother me, and it
it's
fit
part
what I
of
was going for.
And also part of his character development is like it fits where he is. Although I was rewatching a playthrough. It's kind of funny if you're really paying attention in Benny's section, where he goes from he just goes on this tirade about like single parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and then it's and then a switch flips and it's completely different.
Yeah. Every character in this game makes development.
Yeah.
And that's in part of the positive choices you make. And you can tell when something is positive because their background goes from a darker color to a lighter color. If it goes in the opposite direction, you may actually did something that harmed them psychically or psychologically.
Yeah.
Oh, and we should say, for those that don't know the way that what this game is, and we said it was a point and click adventure, but it's a point and click adventure where you pick from 5 different people that are in a post-apocalyptic world where a computer has taken over and everybody's dead except for these 5 people that he's torturing endlessly.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, the setup is the same in the game and the book. It's 109 years in the future, and Am, who is an AI, basically Harlan's version of Skynet, has killed all but 5 humans. These 5 humans, and has just been torturing them nonstop for 109 years and keeping them alive.
Yeah.
The game itself does give some explanations as to how and why that's happening, a little bit more than the short story, but the setup is the same.
Yeah, it is.
It's very, very dark just as a basic setup, and it's actually very interesting too.
And it should be also noted, Harlan worked very closely with the developers of this game.
Yep. That's cool.
Yeah. I think he even wrote all of the script for the game on a typewriter. On a typewriter, because he's that kind of writer.
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it was a cool game. I mean, I played this unfortunately weeks ago because I had to play Code Veronica for the show, and I didn't want to play Code Veronica for the show, so instead I played this right away. So, this is what I do. But, good game. But, I hated playing it. Close an episode. But I mean, it's so fucking dark. And, I was very confused when I started playing this, and I just picked the guy on the left. And as a guy who's not familiar with point-and-click adventures, I also played this on the Steam Deck. So I had to use I was able to use some... I forget what I used.
If you pick the guy on the left, I believe that's Nimdoc.
No, Nimdoc Gorister.
Gorister. Oh, well,
yeah. Gorister was the guy in the airship that has his dead wife.
It's super esoteric.
Yeah.
That one, I had to watch it a couple times to really get what was going on in that, because
I don't understand anything in this game.
I think Gorister's is the one that's the hardest to understand initially, because his entire section is one giant metaphor, and it's from the very beginning, and there's even a cheeky little thing later on where he finds people hanging on meat hooks.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And that's supposed to represent him letting them off of the hook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a very weird, because as I said, as a guy who doesn't play these type of games, the way I played this is I literally read a guide that said, go here, click this, grab that, because it's me. But that's my way of experiencing the game. But I was just very confused by picking his. I'm like, I don't understand anything that's happening. I was he's like, I just can't stop torturing me, can he? I'm like, what is going on?
Well, and
Well, if we want to just kind of get into their stories, especially in Gorsters, that whole section with the jackal. Which
the dog? The talking dog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That ties into this, like a subplot in the game that sets up the end game.
Yeah.
Includes him. Yeah, because each of the characters has these parts in their sections that hint at it. And Gorsters is the talking dog, and he's just and the dog is just like, yeah, there's other stuff going on. Just keep trying to be a good guy, and if you haven't played any of their sections first, it's not going to make any sense.
Okay, yeah, it didn't make any sense to me at all what was going on. Like, I was just trying to go through the game. It wasn't until I did a few more that I started to understand, like, what the game was and what was happening. Because I was just... And I don't even know if I even got the good version of his or not, because in the end, I blew up the gas station.
No, you're supposed to blow up.
Okay, I wasn't in it, though. I was on the airship, at least, and it blew up. So I
Yep.
probably did it right then. Okay.
Yeah, because that's Gorrister killing himself as per what Am wishes, because the gas station has a sign that says Gorrister, and during that whole section, he's talking with Edna, who's the lady on the hook, and then he's also in the bar talking with the one guy. I can't remember his name, but you got to give him drinks.
That's Edna's husband, and that's basically his in-laws.
Yeah, and it's dealing with like how he sent his wife to an insane asylum and how he feels guilt over it, and how not only does he have to forgive the in-laws for what they did, but also forgive himself and to let go of that. And so him blowing up the gas station is actually him moving on from that part of him from that part of his life and letting it go.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I blew up the gas station once when I was inside of it too, by accident.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, each time you complete this, if you complete the sections right, you advance the game along. They're no longer you can no longer select them from the from the Pillar of Pain or the Pillar of Hate, which that was another brilliant move on Ellison's part and the developer's part, opening it with the iconic hate speech from it.
I was very confused because, like, when they finished it, like, you just see him back in the cell being tortured, but then he's no longer pickable. So I'm like, well, did I do the right thing? I didn't understand. I didn't really care for for this first one either. I was just like, okay, this is kind of stupid, was my opinion at first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It wasn't. What was the second? The second one was the woman that knew how to do coding, right?
That's Ellen.
Hers is actually my favorite section.
I can actually see that. I mean,
I should ask before we go on to Ellen. Phoebe, what did you think of Gorrister for the first one?
I thought, okay, so this is when I first started seeing problems with the game, because if you don't read the manual or you're not used to 90s point-and-click games, a lot of the magic pixel doorway stuff, it's just really hard to get through.
Yeah.
And also, it's when I noticed that sometimes you can use walk to as a command to go through doors, but other times you have to use fuse.
Yeah.
And that's when that whole thing started. I do have two questions about Gorrister's section, actually.
Okay.
So you said that the jackal is supposed to be one of the components, right?
The jackal is representative of one of the other AMs.
Okay, so is the jackal the same as the devil from Ted's section? Because they sound pretty alike in my head.
Probably.
Okay, so then my other question is, what was the Zeppelin supposed to represent? Like, is that Edna steering his life around?
It could be. That's the thing about metaphor. It's up to you to decide or try and interpret it. And for those who have read the story or listened to the story beforehand, what you have is basically characters that all you know of them is what you're told, and even your narrator isn't reliable, because Am has had them for 109 years. So he's messed with them in so many ways. As we said, he's basically changed Benny into a simian-like creature. Even at the beginning of the story, he basically is about to torture Benny again and basically makes Benny blind.
Oh, yeah.
And
not nice.
No, Benny's sort of Am's favorite punching bag.
Yeah.
Ellen's the only woman, according to the story, she was originally very somewhat
very
very chaste. Not anymore. of course, as it's hinted at the story, everybody has some time with Ellen, mainly because if they didn't, they would have gone mad faster than they have.
Oh.
I
Well,
mean,
it's also heavily implied, at least because I know with Benny it is, but it's heavily implied that Am kind of makes them do it because Am laughs.
he
at it.
probably watches and laughs at it too.
Yeah.
I
Am
mean,
is
you
a
can't.
very evil computer.
Yeah.
And this is probably going off a little tangent. I think Am as a sort of like as this evil AI antagonist is especially in the game is one of my favorites that I've ever seen because Am is just so different. He's sadistic and just insanely psychotic.
Think about how he got created. 3 separate superpowers made these supercomputers to fight the war for them instead of doing it themselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then as time progressed, I mean, they're figuring things out, but Am was the first one to reach the point, I think, therefore I am.
Well, yeah, that's part of the opening speech, which is really cool. It's actually worth just going and watching that, where Am becomes aware and Am goes completely insane. And at least in the game, they pretty much spell it out, the reason why Am is doing everything, which is essentially because when Am became self-aware, Am realized that he was trapped. For all of his capabilities, he cannot be creative or imaginative in the way that humans are.
And he is also stuck.
Yeah,
Can't
and he's
move.
Yeah, he can't actually go anywhere or change, and that's what drove him insane.
Yep. And which is why he gets so much joy torturing the 5 humans left in the world.
Makes sense. It was just so weird to me, like, and it was very, very dark. Because I was saying a little bit, like, when you started playing as Ellen, I mean, I was still very fucking confused what was happening, but this is when I started to get more into the game. And I liked Ellen's stuff. I like where she's like, well, I was a programmer, so I know how to do this. And it just started to kind of click more for me. I was still very much just doing what the guide told me. Like, there's one part where she doesn't like the color yellow, so you have to, wear a bandana. I mean, very...
Bandana made out of the color yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, whatever,
Well, well, that's part of the reason why I like her is because of what it leads up to.
Yeah.
The scene in the elevator, and that's why I like hers. How that there is still all of that symbolism and stuff, but it has a much clearer through line to what happened.
Wasn't she attacked on the elevator?
Yeah.
That was a serial rapist, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What happened was is a rapist attacked her in an elevator, and he was wearing a yellow janitor suit.
Yep.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why she doesn't like the color yellow. That's why it hurts her, and it's also why she's scared of confined spaces, which I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I believe if you look up sort of the real effects of PTSD, the way it's portrayed in this game is correct, where it's more like having panic attacks.
Yeah, it is. It's not where certain things just affect you and you just it's.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that, but yeah.
Yeah, that is very accurate. I mean, and everybody will associate stuff like PTSD with stuff like being attacked, being in the war, but any traumatic event will do that to you.
Yes.
It was nice to see just how accurate this game got it compared to a lot of other media.
Yeah. I think this is also why at the time, and I played the game, it was its own way therapeutic because I was going through my own dark times. I mean, I was like my wife. I've mentioned this in some ways, probably before on one of the podcasts, Mike. I don't remember which, but you see, I woke up on July 2nd, 2018, and my wife was dead. She died pretty much in her sleep, and my mind would prepare for was trying to think out scenarios. I mean, I'll be honest. I was working at Amazon at the time. I would be going through my job and I would think of stuff like, are they going to be out all right if I pass away? And I could never picture I'm the one who survives when one of us dies. And here I was facing what is basically my ultimate bad day. I mean, I was in complete shock for about 24 hours. And then, once the day was over, the next day started, my mind I've got to set up a funeral. I've got to get all these things going. My own mind switched to, I've got to process this together. I was not fully ready to handle all the things that came after. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I did not sleep in my bed for over a month, or for about a month.
Perfect sense. I mean, you had a traumatic experience.
Yeah, I was sleeping on my lazy boy recliner. I knew I had to go through all the stuff. I had gotten all my wife's clothes out of the closet. They were laying on the bed, but I couldn't anything I saw with her name on it, it triggered me. And I swear, one of my worst day. I mean, I kept working because I was so worried about where funds were coming from.
Which is fair. I mean, it's what we live in. So
I mean, I did it for about 3 months until I finally broke down because the whole memory, I heard my panicked voice coming back to me while in the fulfillment center, walking along, doing my job, and I just collapsed. Someone did come, was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, I'm not." I was crying. I was everything. They got the person who was at the pick desk. They came in. Everybody got around me. Even the managers. They're like, "You need to take a leave. You need to take time off. You need this. You need time to grieve." And that was the first of my medical leaves before I left Amazon. But I know we've gotten a little off topic here.
It's fine. It does fit the theme.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, to be fair, but so.
Yeah. But this is what happens when you have people who are looking out for you. Even, you can hear bad stories about employers. And like I always say, if you've proven yourself, and you have good employers, they will treat you with respect. They will be kind to you. They were urging me to take this before then, and I'm like, I can't do that yet because I don't know where the money's coming from. And then when it was all said and done, and when this happened, they were really like, "We've got you. Don't worry. You need to do this." So, like I said, you prove yourself at a working place, and they're good employers. They're like, if you got somebody like him, oh no, you're not going to get time to recover. You're just going to get screwed over again and again. All these scenarios they went through had chances for them to recover in it, which is, I think, not what AM planned.
No, but also it's just the whole idea of how a game sticks with you. That's the last thing I just want to say on that. But because that's one thing very important about games. I mean, depending on when something happens to your life in a game, like the right game sometimes comes at the right time in its own way, and that's what this kind of sounds like it was for you, and especially to play something that's all about people suffering terribly. I liked Ellen's. I felt like Ellen was especially when you get, there's one point when you kind of get out of Ellen's or out of the pyramid area and you start to see what the world looks like, is what I thought it was. Because they're not they don't have physical bodies, correct?
Oh, no, they do.
They do have physical bodies.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe they were just minds in a computer and everything was just virtual.
Nope.
Okay, when you see the city, I think it's when the other heads talk to you, where it's AIM doesn't know we're talking or he would kill me. And that's when I started to get more into this game. That's when I started to be okay, game, you have my attention now.
Yeah, they're referred to as psychodramas, and the game does actually explain a little bit of it later in the final section. But it's sort of they're virtual, but AM has the capability to make these things actually happen to the person. So just to go back to Gorster, the people he runs into, the people he talks to are not real people, and that's explained later. But Gorster in that environment, AM made that entire environment and then sent Gorster there, and same thing with Ellen. And what's happening with these other things going with the other AMs? Actually, they've heard of them as, I believe, the Russian and
the Russian
AM, the Chinese AM.
Yeah, and basically they kind of established that those still exist inside of AM, but are able to sneak in these moments to talk to these characters as they attempt to shut down Am.
They managed to stay a little saner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't believe...
See, I needed that. I needed this little thing to get me more into the game. And, like, I didn't care for Gorster at all, but I actually liked Ellen. Like, I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably... Because also with those three, that's how you get to... There is the good ending of the game, which Harlan did not want to have in the game initially.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, and the developers had to tell him. They said no, you can't have a game with a bad ending like that. There has to be a good end to all of it, at least a possible good end, and that's where that comes in.
Now, if he could have done it later in life as they developed computer games more, yeah, they might have allowed him to keep the original ending.
Well, the original ending is the game's default bad ending, I believe.
Yeah. Although it's a different it could be a different person.
Yeah, you can decide whoever the hell you want it to be.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the third person you play as the one that we talked about earlier, which is Benny, which is the deformed human.
Yeah.
Yes.
I liked his because it's like he was in what, like, it starts off that it looks like you're in like an underground futuristic alien meets Earth dome type thing with like these weird ass this tribe of people that are living in like a very organic technological world.
Yeah, it was very H.R. Geiger. That's when I first
Yes.
realized, oh, this is definitely the same people who do Darkseid or Darkseid.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Oh yeah.
I didn't like Benny, but it was very interesting. Like they had the lottery aspect of it, which again reminded me of that old short story. I think it was actually called The Lottery.
Yeah. It's literally just the lottery, but with Am. especially Am's quips, where he's like, well, you guys didn't bring me Toto, but I guess this will work.
I thought that they were alive. Like I thought these were real people that were living in this place.
Yeah.
At first,
Until the mother dies.
I was just, when the mother died and you turned out when you you pick up, she's like wires and stuff, and I think that's how you do something. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Because when the mother dies, I believe Benny can inspect it, and he says it's wires and burnt plastic. Yes. But I wasn't sure if that actually implies that it's the mother as opposed to the thing that they were using.
Yeah,
it was pretty much confirming that they're all robots because later on during that final part, Gorster, during his section, realizes that that's not Glynis.
Gorster ran into her, but during that final part, we'll get to go back to it. During that final part, anyone can run into Glynis there. And if it's not Gorster, they go, oh, well, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Benny's was just, I was a little confused, like, just in general, because I couldn't get something to work. But I did appreciate, like, you go to the gravestones and there's people that he, like, I guess betrayed when he was a human or something, and, like, he's having to pay for his sins, essentially.
Yeah.
He killed his own soldiers at Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and basically how that section works, which actually kind of gives me a chuckle because Benny has to talk to each of them, and he has to go, and he goes, "What can I do to convince you I'm a better man?" And he does it like 3 times in that tone, and it's kind of funny. But he killed the one soldier whose name is Brickman, and then to cover it up, he killed 3 more soldiers, and those are the 3 and those are the 3 graves.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
One of them was because they tried to rescue another soldier. Like one soldier was down, and he was going back for him, but Benny's character was all, we don't go back for, dead meat. So he put a bullet in the guy's head to stop wasting time while they were retreating.
Stuff like that.
Which, when you think of it in some ways, there was that mentality in the wars, where you don't leave a soldier behind. Even if they're dead, you get them. I mean, let's face it, even in the 90s, we had the MIA POW group, because so many people never came back from Vietnam. And everybody wanted to know, everybody wants that closure. The home side needs that closure. But at the same respect, to risk injuring 5, 10 men just to fetch a dead body, it doesn't make sense. You could have 9 soldiers safe and sound, able to fight.
With Benny, it's different. It isn't that that. It's more that Benny was just kind of a psycho, because when he's talking to them, the soldiers he talks to, they talk about how Benny was viewing them as weak and not able to hack it. And it was this, and like, actually no, Benny wasn't a psychopath, he was a sociopath. A very extreme example of it. And basically, because he killed that one soldier, he killed Brickman, and he killed Brickman because he thought Brickman was weak. And was alive.
I wouldn't necessarily say sociopaths. Let's see, what's the difference? Does a sociopath understand feelings?
I could be wrong. Sociopaths, they know what feelings are, and they recognize them in other people, but they may not feel them themselves. However, they work to ensure that they know how to mimic them.
Yeah, because that's where I'm a little bit off, because, you see something who are maybe high-functioning sociopaths, they can understand some of these feelings and actually feel something genuine when it comes to the right person.
Well, and as I mentioned earlier, because his character development, the ending part's cool, but it's a little bit ham-fisted, because in the very beginning, when he's talking to the mom and the child, and he's like borderline going on a rant about how it's a single parent household and
the welfare parasites.
yeah, and welfare parasites, and then the mother feeds him, and it's just like an immediate switch goes off in his head, and he's completely different.
It's sort of like, you get these mindsets. He's more of gung-ho, how to put it in some terms that we can easier relate to. He starts out seeming like Frank Burns from MASH, who no one can like, but he's managed to get married. And then something switches, like he first sees some compassion and decency from people, and he transforms more into Winchester, he becomes more tolerable, and you can empathize with him. He's seeing that not everything is how his mind set it to be, and he actually learns.
Yeah.
I mean, I have not relied on anything too much. I mean, we get benefits because of my wife passing away, but I have a hard time bringing myself asking for help. And I never wanted to take help because, of course, part of it is the mindset that I grew up with, and I've heard my father complain, that we are unfortunately American-born white, so we wouldn't get any of the benefits the government offers, which...
Not true, but that's how some people see it, yes. I hear it in my day-to-day activities. I'll leave it at that. But I have heard people say that to me, too, and I'm like, all right, buddy, here you go.
Yeah, well, I said, it's part of how, in the 80s, that's kind of how it played out.
Well, yeah, no, people were,
People were, some groups were very asinine, and you have people who grew up basically getting jerked around. My father has tons of stories about how he was surprised at all the stuff that I got in my generation of schooling, yet in his generation of schooling, they didn't care less. It's his sort of, he was like one of those, oh, you're fine with the old books that are 10 years old, 20 years old. You're fine with them. And then the next class, you're getting all this new stuff because we got the money for it. But why give it to the class that's currently in there who was not even reached graduation yet? That kind of thought process. So, we can be a product of what we grow up in.
Yeah. How did Benny's end again? I think I can't remember what. He sacrifices himself.
Yeah, you can choose to sacrifice, but you can also end every single scenario early by doing different things.
Yeah.
For example, eating the mom. So has anybody seen the cut scene from Benny's section?
No, I haven't.
No.
So there is a cut scene from the game where I guess there was supposed to be a baby at one point, and Benny is so hungry that there is a scene that you can commit to, and it just shows shadows on the cave wall as Benny starts to put this baby's foot in his mouth, and it is implied that you can choose to eat a baby.
Right.
Well, that in a weird sort of way is actually in line with his characterization from the short story.
Yeah.
because in the short story, Benny is basically like an ape, like a primitive man, and at one point he's so hungry that I believe he starts eating. I think it's Gorster's face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
God.
yeah. Yeah.
That's towards the end of the story. Which even if you pay attention, if you've heard the story before playing the game, you'll actually hear them reference events that happen in the story.
I was wondering about that because there's a can opener in the short story, isn't there?
Nope.
No. I believe it's Benny who says it, because Benny says, "Oh yeah, there was one time Am made me walk 1,000 miles to go to get some cans, but then didn't give me a can opener," which is the goal of the short story.
Yeah,
where they just all get this vision.
Sequel?
No.
No,
because at the end of the short story, which your intro pretty much was and you showed it to me beforehand. I thought it was great. You have, it's when they see how they can escape. They can finally escape this hell they've been in for 109 years. Am cannot revive them. If they die, he cannot bring them back. He is not all powerful. And so Benny goes ape shit on Gorrister, and this starts the, quote, slaughter of all of them except for Ted.
Yeah, and that whole thing in the short story, that is how they win against Am, is 4 of them die, and Ted is still alive. Am is incensed over this and turns Ted into this amorphous blob-like creature.
Yep.
But then Ted is like, well, I'm fine with this because I know that they all finally got to die and we actually got one over on Am, so I can at least bear this a little bit.
Even though he's not aware of how much time passes anymore.
Yeah.
And he can't say anything or anything else. And the title of the story.
I couldn't remember that it ended with Benny sacrificing himself, but again, that makes sense. The fourth one brings you to, which was my favorite of these, that this is when I started to get way more interested in this game than I was, which wasn't, huge, but I was there. But when I played Nimdocs, and immediately I knew I was in, Germany, World War II, because they don't have Nazi symbols, but they have an A, and you can tell really quick, the symbolism and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is deep and dark.
There's also a point where they slip up later on and directly refer to them as Nazis.
Oh, I don't think I caught that.
Yes.
That's cool.
And you're working with the actual Dr. Mangala.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and this is also something that was made for the game, because in the short story Nimdoc, the only thing that happens with him is it's just said that he disappears for long periods of time and then shows back up like he's been drained of blood.
Yeah.
And that's it. It doesn't even describe his age or anything like that. It's just that's what happens.
He was the one where it's I didn't feel any sorrow for him, because he was torturing these people, and I'm like, well, you get what you deserve. But it was just it was a dark one. It was probably it was the darkest for me. Just going through and how you had to kill a patient, and then eventually you release patient. But it was really creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually Nimdocs is probably the one that's best to play first in a weird sort of way, because there's that one room with the patient who has their eyes hooked up to electrical cords, and then their eyes are in a jar, and Nimdoc has to grab those. And if Nimdoc uses the ether on that patient before taking it, the patient will mention seeing 3 beasts in a vision and a bunch of their own tribe sleeping somewhere safely. And so if you're playing Nimdoc first, that's your first hint if there's something else going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just did an order from left to right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and that
depending on your walkthrough.
Because doesn't that mean that Am is aware of the lunar colony?
No.
No, that's technically even the worse ending than what happens to the character. The 3 smaller Ams know about it, but Am, as an overarching thing, is not aware of that colony.
So they're keeping bits of info away from him.
Correct.
Okay.
I would say the Chinese Am and the Russian Am, they know of it and have kept that knowledge secret. I mean, again, this is what you would think of more along the lines of complete personality dissociative disorder, or dissociative personality disorder.
Yeah, one of those. I know what you mean.
Yeah, because I mean, look at let's since we are when we've recording this, we recently had the loss of like another Batman actor, voice actor. But looking at the ventriloquist from Batman, Scarface and the ventriloquist are two different personalities. One personality has no idea what the other one's thinking or doing, which is why it even could, like in one clip I was just saw in recent days, the one doesn't know what the other is doing. Even the Bat computer could not thought it was two different people speaking.
Yeah, it's the part being still individual from the whole.
Yeah, and there's things that sometimes anybody who's suffered trauma, they shut that part of their mind down. They won't access those memories until literally forced to.
Yeah, that is true. That's what the brain does. I mean, for example, personal thing for me, I had an ex that was not a good relationship, and like I'm pretty sure I ran into her once, but I couldn't recognize her. And I'm a guy who can recognize like anybody who I worked with or met randomly, and I couldn't tell.
Oh yeah,
my brain
I didn't say during the Ellen bit, but there was a time in my life for a good couple of years where I just stopped playing fighting games in general because they correlated in my mind to somebody very much like Ellen's situation with the color yellow.
Mm.
Well, also with AM specifically, like, because since AM, they established that it is an amalgamation of these things, that it's more like they are AM's subconscious, sort of, in a way, because that's not quite how AM works, but that's part of the final part of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. And then also with Nimdoc, it's actually a section where you can tell they really did a lot of research in terms of Jewish culture and the Jewish peoples, because a lot of the terminology I use is very correct for the time period. If you go and look it up, specifically all the stuff with the Golem and the Lost Tribe, how that all ties in.
Oh yeah.
But this one is one of my favorites just because as a subject matter where it's this person is a Nazi collaborator, and even more so they are a Jewish Nazi collaborator.
Gave his own parents away. Like, my God.
Yeah.
And people really did that, too. That's what's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Save your own skin. I mean, sometimes, terrible things happen because people are selfish and, yeah.
But that's kind of funny when Nimdoc is always like, when Nimdoc's like, what? I don't know who you are. I don't know why you don't like me. And it's like, at what point, it's just like, eventually he realizes it, but it's like, dude, you got to realize at some point that, like, clearly you're responsible for some of this.
I think it's implied in some point that Am gave everybody some form of amnesia, so Nimdoc
that's how I took it.
The worst one.
Well, Am can manipulate their memories. That is, so it's not just some form of, like, Am can actually control it, but it's just kind of funny, especially with how Nimdoc is kind of portrayed as this bumbling old guy when he's not.
Yeah, now I want to say this here because I just brought up Ellison, and this could also explain why this part had such detail. He described himself as a Jewish atheist, and we're talking, this was written like probably 20 years after the end of World War II. This game was about 50 years. So obviously, this is something that's kept in their minds. I mean, you talk with anybody if you talk with some Jewish people who do research into everything and even the Holocaust, it does stick with them even generations later.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so to get it so much detail here, that's sort of, you can't really knock it. It makes a lot of sense.
And I did like how Nimdoc's end, where you end up rescuing the people that are all caged, and then you end up making this golem that the Nazis were trying to find, but you just let it kill you instead to pay for what you've done. I thought that was a fitting end. This was the guy where I'm like, yeah, he deserved it.
He deserved it. He atoned for it too.
Yeah. And Am is so angry because he thought he had a kindred spirit.
Even that, I don't think it's so much Am thinks that in the whole opening. Like, it's weird because in the whole opening monologue that Am does for each character, his is the only one where he has this weird sort of mocking tone to it that the other ones don't have, because with the whole voice affectation and everything, it's it's got like a childish mocking tone to it with the fake accent. He doesn't do that for any of the other four.
He does a little bit for Ted.
No, Ted, he just says his name in the best way possible.
Ted, my man, hey, yo.
No, he's just like, with the way he yells it, Ted!
Ted was the last one that I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't really like Ted's.
Ted's one is also really weird.
Yeah, like he's like in a castle and he sees his wife, but his wife wants a mirror, so you have to go.
That is not his.
It's not his wife?
No.
It's the yellow girl.
It's an
I did not put that together.
Yeah. It's also a very sly reference to the short story, because in the short story, Ted, the narrator, makes several references to having this like massive crush kind of obsession with Ellen.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of implied that there's like a romantic interest there, but it's not actually Ellen. It's some android thing.
Yeah, just some other. Okay, that I did not catch. That makes a little bit more sense. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one, it's also because that one, it's kind of a play on like dealing with fantasy tropes, and the whole thing is like Ted's a fraud, and he has to essentially not be this like smarmy, like womanizing, like I said, like used car salesman type kind of guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot to this game, and I just not everything was clicking with me to understand what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, Ted's is the best when it comes to illusions, because there is a bookshelf in one of the rooms. And when you look at it, it lists all these different classics, like the Divine Comedy, Faust. And every single one of those is related to what's going on in that current sub-story. And one of them is Don Quixote.
Oh, yeah.
Like even Am is pointing out, no, you are the fake knight. You are just a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's also just kind of like there's that where like he kind of wants to be like her knight in shining armor, but like he's not.
I was just so confused. Like the whole time you're just trying to get a mirror, and then you're making a deal with the devil, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
And then that angel shows up. And they gotta go talk to Sergot.
And really confusing me.
Person wants to sleep with Ted.
Oh yeah. She's like she's like the first person that he talks to, and it's so funny because the very first thing he says when he sees her and he comments on her, he goes, if it wasn't for the dishpan hands and the wrinkles, she's got a really nice body. I wouldn't kick her out of bed.
Do you mean the maid?
Yeah, the maid.
Yeah, the maid that just really wants to sleep with him. Yeah.
Racist. Why would you want to sleep with that thing? And I'm like, bitch, excuse me?
Again, remember the time it was made.
I know.
Well, even for the mid '90s, but also that sort of stuff was being done. Like, it's not being done as just like these people are racist. It's being done in a way like these are horrible people kind of way.
And they are supposed. And the essence is you're trying to escape these scenarios and repeating them over and over. You have to do better. You have to adapt. You have to learn. You have to become a better person.
I don't even remember how Ted's ended.
Oh, gets the mirror, and then there's the angel and the used car salesman devil in Ellen's room. And the devil! I love how he's introduced. He's like, I'm a devil. You can tell because I have this red pointed tail. And then it's like you have to. Oh no, yeah, because Ted gives the mirror to the devil, who then looks in it and is so enamored with himself that he gets sucked into the mirror, which then lets the angel take Ellen. And I'm barely following what's happening at this point.
It's very confusing. Like I was into the game, then I was like, okay, I just want to get this over with. Like I didn't even I remember Ted dies, but I can't even remember how Ted dies. I think he sacrificed himself to a devil or something.
See, okay, so this was the part of the game when I realized that the psych profile book in your inventory actually might be your main objective.
Actually, it isn't.
Really?
That is one of the things that I have read over the years. As long as you do not read the psych profile, because if you read the psych profile and you've watched your character's background, it darkens.
No shit.
No, it's a beautiful red herring to put in the game that you don't realize it until you start noticing it. It's a bad decision. Every good decision you make, background lightens. You see your character smile.
You have to do it on your own, not because you're basing your thought process off of a book.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, and also all of the character states tie into the end game, which, as we're talking about Ted and his weird castle adventure, probably a good thing to go into.
Yes.
Because in the end game, because after you do all 5, there's that little section where like Am is like, oh, you guys didn't do the worst things possible. This surprised me. I need to go think about this for a while. And then I think it's actually one of those two.
Both the Russian and the Chinese.
Yeah. Actually talk to the characters and like, we're going to send you into the brainscape to finally shut Am down for good. And you have to have these good emotional states with everyone, because while they're in the brainscape, the only actions that they can do will actually make it worse.
Yeah.
So that's why I always have a failed thing, because I looked at the psych profile. See, and the reason why I bring up the idea that it's your objective is because right around the time that you're supposed to give the devil the mirror, the psych profile actually brings up the story of Narcissus.
That makes sense.
I suppose it all depends on when you look at that psych profile, too, what it could tell you.
Yeah, I was periodically looking at it, and there's some interesting stuff in there. For an IMDoc section, it's pretty much just World War II fact.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and Ted being a narcissist, that does help his scenario make sense, because it's more like he has to learn how to actually care about someone else, and then a lot of what goes on in that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. I mean, playing him off as a grifter, a con man.
Yeah.
It makes sense that he's a bit narcissistic. You never get that, and of course, in the short story, because he's been made into a paranoid nutcase.
Yeah. In the short story, it's really cool, because there's that section where it's Ted, and he goes, everyone, he goes, all of them were messed with except for me. I'm still fine. They're all messed up. But then he starts almost going into a rant about how they're out to get him.
Yeah. He even then realizes, I've been made paranoid.
Yeah, and he starts kind of going into this rant about how like they're out to get him. But if you think about it for 2 seconds, you go, is it even possible for them to be out to get Ted in this situation?
I just appreciated in like the brainscape that actually the background looks like you're on a fucking brain. That was kind of cool. But you have to pick each character and do their certain thing with them. I don't think my brain would have been able to figure it out without the guide, but it was a cool atmosphere touch to the game.
Yeah, and there's actually a correct order to choose the characters for the brainscape, too.
That's what I followed the guide, but unfortunately the game froze on me, and I hadn't really, and I couldn't do anything to get it to work, and I saved at that point, so nothing would work. I couldn't leave the room I was in. And I had no other save, so I just watched the video and said that's good enough and considered I beat the game.
Yeah. I believe in the brainscape, it's always supposed to be Ellen that's last.
Yep, Ellen was last. I was at the very end with Ellen. I was just walking towards where you had to go for the computers all talk to you. And then the game just decided it wanted to freeze. And then I was like, well, we're done.
Oh, that's fun, because the guide that I used said to do them in the same order as the stories.
Oh.
Huh. Yeah.
It is designed that with any character, you should be able to complete the game and get to that good ending. It's designed that way. As you pick up the information, it doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to have necessarily the information. They could infer it or something. But the good ending to the game, the only, quote, good ending, is as you've been pieced together, you find out, of course, Earth is technically uninhabitable at this point. There are a set number of human beings in cryogenic stasis on the moon, which, given how far Mike has gotten into the Resident Evil movies, it's actually a number that is quite lower than being a sustainable population. Because I remember reading that somewhere, that in the last movie it is stated that you are trying to get, that the cure to the T-virus in that movie out before the human population drops below the set number, because then it would be technically extinct, because there would be not enough variation to keep the species going.
Well, in the game, it's there's 750 people in cryostasis.
Yeah, which, unless you got cloning capabilities, hey, maybe that they do have it, considering everything Am can frickin' do.
Well, that's all Nimdoc tech.
Yeah, but you are supposed to, if you power down all the power nodes, you kill them. So you are supposed to be able to keep them alive and wipe out all the AMs. The AM, the Russian AM, the Chinese AM.
Yeah, which then
And then you
allows
basically, the character that does that becomes the new AM. But
yeah, and they're supposed to like watch over those humans as they wake up and help them terraform the planet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which they had to argue with Harlan to get that in there.
Yeah.
I get it because it goes against his artistic vision, so I get it.
Yeah, because there's also an ending where Am becomes aware of those people and then just goes and tortures them.
Yep. And one where he agrees to work with the Chinese and the Russian AM. I still remember one. It's like, can we get to torture them too?
There are what, 4 endings to this game?
8 total.
8?
Damn, that's
8.
a lot.
And
Yeah,
one good one.
Yes, only one good one.
Yeah.
Was that kind of a thing of like point and click adventures to have a lot of different endings?
Well, when you
Not-
think about it, there are, because look at the original, well, referring to Maniac Mansion. You have 6 characters to pick from to add to your lineup of who goes in. You take 2 in there with you in Maniac Mansion with your main character. And judging by the paths you take, you get different endings put together. Like, you take in the one who's a writer, and she can type up and make the Meteor's manuscript look better. You send it off to 2 guys who'll publish anything. They'll return a contract in lickety-split time, because game. You present it to the Meteor. The Meteor stops wanting to, do the whole zombie-matic thing and goes on a writing tour. But at the same time, if you also have a character who can replay the radio, you could have him go on that writing tour, and then midway through the tour, he's getting rearrested by the Meteor police. So yeah, they've had that. It's just now that with better graphics and all that, they can get more elaborate and better looking endings.
Yeah, this was 95.
Yeah.
And DOS.
I only know of the 3 endings, like the book ending, the good one where the people are awake, and then there's the one character, and then the one where Am finds out about the survivors and decides to torture them. I don't know about the rest of the endings.
Here's the listing, and this is from the Wikipedia post. There are, it says 7. Of course, then I guess you have anything you do dumb in that last section. First one, Am wins, using Nimdoc's research to turn the last character played into a great soft jelly thing, with each character quoting a different part of the final section of the original story. Am joins with the Russian and Chinese supercomputers, reawakens, and tortures the 750 humans on Luna, the moon. As in the first ending, the character responsible for this is turned into a great soft, Am is made harmless with the help of the humans, but the Russian and Chinese supercomputers take over in its stead. As consolation, they allow Am to choose what to do to the humans, and Am turns the last character played into the player gives the totem of entropy to Surgot, one of Am's servants. He activates it, killing the Russian and Chinese supercomputer, and then Am turns the player into the soft jelly thing.
That's what I got.
The human invokes the totem of entropy in front of the Russian and Chinese supercomputer. Am tells the player they did not earn his mercy and jelly. The player disables either the id, superego, or both, then invokes the totem of entropy. This ends with the player monitoring the computers, but the ego kills the 750 humans. Am and the Chinese and Russian supercomputers are defeated, and the 750 humans cryogenically frozen on Luna are reawakened, and Earth is transformed to become a habitable environment, with the overseer being the last character played. That is the, quote, good ending, that last one.
Okay. I don't even know what the hell my guide got. I was going to watch more and get more into this before we did the recording, and I was just like, you know what, I wasn't. I couldn't find much on mine either. I just wasn't interested.
It's just so many different loops to jump through.
Yeah. So we should. Yeah. I think we should go to Shelf Stacker Box, and I'll go first to get mine out of the way. I don't have a whole lot to say. I'm gonna put it in a box. I mean, I'm glad I finally played it because I like to be able to knock things off a list that go on a list when somebody said, "Hey, we should do this on the show," and I don't do it. So list checked, but point and click adventures are not for me. This game was not for me, but I'm glad I played it, and I'm glad to have experienced it and hear all the stuff about it. But yeah, I'll never play it again. It's going in the box. What about you, Phoebe?
I'm also going to put this on the box with an addendum that says, hey, go watch a video of this game, because a lot of the theming and the writing still holds up even today.
Okay. If not the words used in it.
And Ron.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by shelf stacker box.
Oh, sorry, I did not say that before we started. A shelf being something you really like, box being something you dislike, stack is the middle.
Well, so to be completely clear, I haven't actually played it. I've just watched playthroughs of it multiple times.
That's enough.
Which as far as I'm concerned, is a great way to kill an afternoon. So I guess I'd have to say shelf, because I don't mind spending a few hours just letting it play in the background when I do other stuff. And it's actually interesting. Yeah, I think if I were to play it, I probably wouldn't like it. But that's because it's point-and-click adventure. But watching it is great.
And Richard?
Well, like I said, it's a game to experience. If you know of Ellison's works, know what kind of person it is, everything does make sense. I mean, this is something that started a new era in science fiction, but it was adapted to computer. Now, like I said, I prepared for this. I played the game again. I listened to the short story. I read the short story. Game-wise, I think everybody should at least give it a try once in their lives. And if you ever have a time when you have to, things just seem bad, playing through it is like, there are people who had it worse and made it through it and can make it through it. So, definitely play it. Definitely play it multiple times if you don't get the best ending, of course. You might want to experience all the endings just to see how they differ. I'm personally going to put it on the stack. I mean, this is not a game you should rush into and replay unless you really are a big Harlan Ellison fan. I mean, the kind that would go gaga over his appearances on, The Simpsons and
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, that was actually one of his best, I think. But
well,
yeah,
is his appearance on Scooby-Doo better than the Johnny Bravo crossover?
That was your one you're talking about was in Johnny Bravo itself. Yeah, in Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, which was more a serialized big story with smaller parts. He shows up, and at the end, he becomes the new Mr. E when the reality is changed.
I did not know that. I just remember him showing up with HP hate crap.
Yeah. He becomes the new Mr. E. I mean, it's appropriate. Ellison E. And he says, all my years of writing speculative fiction have allowed me to remember everything that happened prior. Because I'm a genius.
That's awesome.
Fits with his personality, and his look on that show was basically based off his look in the 70s. But he is a brutally honest person who basically fought tooth and nail to keep his work in its integrity, and if you did something based off his work and didn't acknowledge him, he'd be pissed. Hence Terminator getting his tag on there. But game-wise, this game, definitely it's on the stack. I would definitely recommend someone playing it, especially if you need that. And just appreciate the beauty of all the things they put in this to make it stand out. I mean, there's a reason why it stands out, even to this day. I mean, I think some games have it listed as part of some top 10 lists. So yeah, definitely play it for definite.
Okay.
Or just watch long plays of it on YouTube like I do.
Yeah, that's probably enough too.
Yeah, you can do that.
That's kind of what I almost did by just reading. So
yeah, like I said, it's a great way to kill an afternoon.
Or make a podcast, and you don't have to worry about killing time. You're always busy. All right, and Phoebe, where can people find you at?
I am the Let's Play Princess. You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, and the Twitter underneath that name.
All right. And Richard, where can people find you at?
You can find me up on YouTube. I have everything. I have various game playthroughs that I put up on YouTube and other things. This is one of the games I did play through. I'm glad I played through it then. I'm glad to replay it for the podcast here. You can hear me react to it first time playing it too. And yes, I used a walkthrough.
That's the right way to play. So.
But yeah, and you can also find stories that I write that are posted up on websites like fanfiction.net, Archive of Our Own, Comic Vine.
Okay.
And and we can make Mike play other games like this in the future.
I will play more.
Click games.
I mean, if you want weird games that'll just completely baffle people, I can help with that. You don't even want to know some of the stuff I play.
Oh, you're gonna have to message me.
All right.
And maybe we can get him to play Gibbous.
Don't know what that is, so I'm going to say no. The only other point and click.
Cthulhu point and click.
It is in the point and click genre, but it's so damn funny.
Is that the talking cat one?
Yep.
Okay.
The only one I want to play is Blade Runner. That's the only point and click game that I want to play. So, because I'm curious about that. I think it's a point and click adventure too, but we'll see. The Blade Runner Enhanced, which I did not realize is also on Steam. So, all right. And if you enjoyed this episode, there are over 500 other episodes of this podcast. We just finished our big Spooktober, so I'm sure if you enjoyed this, there is tons of other spooky stuff to go listen to. So definitely go do all that. If you want to support the show, we do have a Patreon. For as little as $1, you can vote in our Patreon polls. We have one every month, so go support the show. You'll see a link in the show notes for that. Also, please join our Discord. You see a link in the show notes for that too. You can chat with us, so you can see the invite. Please join. We need more people to talk with us. And if you want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro courtesy of Helena at Hell Hasphere, you can follow her on TikTok, and you'll see a link in the show notes to all her Linktree stuff. You'll see a link to the people that are on here that just mentioned things. I want to give a shout out to two other podcasts, Gamer Looks at 40 by Bill Tucker, who's been on the show many times, and Nomads of Fantasy. Definitely go check them out too. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube, audio only. And please review us, review wherever you get us, because it helps a lot. I think that's everything I need to say, so we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, all.
Bye.
And remember, this was a mini.
Bye.